June 13, 1901. The Redpath mansion stood in silence on Sherbrooke Street, Montreal, a house of wealth, privilege, and secrets. Inside its lavish walls, the Redpath family lived as part of Canada's elite. They had money, they had power, and yet, in a single night, that power meant nothing. 4 gunshots shattered the quiet. By the time the echoes faded, 2 bodies were lying in pools of blood, a mother and her son. No clear witnesses, no real answers. Within 48 hours, the family buried them, and with them, the truth. This was not a poor man's crime in a dark alley. This was high society, and the cover-up was almost perfect. Tonight, we step inside that mansion, a place where privilege could not protect, where silence replaced justice, and where one question remains more than a century later. Who killed Ada and Clifford Redpath? To understand this mystery, you must first see the world the Redpaths built for themselves. The year was 1901. Canada was young, but its wealth was growing fast. And at the very heart of that wealth was the Redpath family. They had made their fortune in sugar, an empire that fed not just Montreal, but the entire country. Ada Maria Mills Redpath, the matriarch, was the widow of John James Redpath, one of the most powerful men in the Golden Square Mile, the neighborhood where Montreal's elite lived in palatial homes. Their mansion, towering over Sherbrooke Street, was one of the grandest. To the outside world, this was a family untouchable. They dined with politicians. They controlled industry. They lived in luxury that ordinary Canadians could barely imagine. But inside those walls, things were not so perfect. Ada, in her later years, was not well. She was frail, often confined to her bedroom, tended by her children and servants. She leaned heavily on her son Jocelyn, Clifford Redpath, or simply Clifford. At only 24 years old, he was bright, ambitious, and preparing to become a lawyer. He was due to sit for his bar exam in just weeks. A brilliant future, proud mother, a family mansion worth millions. But on June 13th, everything inside that house collapsed. June 13th, 1901. Evening falls. Inside the mansion, Ada Redpath was resting in her upstairs bedroom. Her health had been failing for years. The servants moved quietly through the hallways, making sure not to disturb her. Clifford, her 24-year-old son, was nearby, preparing for his bar exam. What happened next is blurred by secrecy and silence. But what is known is this: shortly after 6 p.m., the calm of the mansion was broken. Servants reported hearing gunshots, 4 in total. When they rushed upstairs, they found a nightmare that would haunt Montreal forever. Ada Redpath was slumped in her bed, a bullet wound in her chest, blood soaking into the fine sheets, and Clifford, her son, lay dead on the floor of her bedroom, a revolver by his side. The scene should have been chaos. Police called, an investigation launched. But that's not what happened inside the Redpath mansion. Instead, the family acted with swift, deliberate control. Within hours, the servants were silenced. No scandal, no press access, and just 48 hours later, both mother and son were buried. Side by side, no autopsies, no official inquiry. For an elite family of such prominence, the silence was deafening. Newspapers reported the deaths only briefly, and always with caution. Some hinted at an accident. Others whispered about a family tragedy too delicate for public eyes. The official story? Clifford, struggling with illness and pressure, had snapped. He killed his mother in a fit of madness, then turned the gun on himself. Convenient, too convenient, and yet it was accepted, or at least it was forced to be accepted. For more than a century, people have asked, what really happened inside that mansion? The first theory, the one whispered immediately, was murder-suicide. Clifford, under unbearable stress from his looming bar exam, may have suffered a mental break. Some suggested he had epilepsy or another illness hidden by the family. In this version, he shot his mother, then himself. But there's a problem. Clifford was beloved by his family. Brilliant, dutiful, and there was no record of violence, no sign of delusion. Even his exam pressure seemed trivial compared to what was at stake for his career. Could he really have snapped so violently? Then came the second theory, the one that chills the blood even deeper. Cover-up. Some believe Clifford never pulled the trigger at all. That someone else inside the mansion killed both him and Ada. Why? To protect the family name. To bury a scandal that could ruin the Redpath fortune. Could it have been another sibling? A servant silenced into obedience? Or was it part of a wider conspiracy? A stain on Montreal's wealthiest circle that had to be erased before it reached the press? We may never know, because the Redpaths made sure no outsider ever would. The mansion itself became as much a character in the mystery as the people inside it. After the killings, the Redpath family continued to live in it for years, never publicly speaking of the tragedy that stained its walls. Over time, whispers grew. Neighbors claimed the mansion was cursed. Servants came and went quickly, unnerved by the lingering sense of death in the rooms where Ada and Clifford died. By the mid-20th century, the house was abandoned. Eventually, it was demolished. Today, nothing remains of the Redpath mansion, just an empty memory on Sherbrooke Street. But still, the story refuses to die. Historians, journalists, and true crime researchers dig into the case, only to find brick walls and unanswered questions. The deeper you go, the more suffocating the silence becomes. The Redpath case is more than just an old Canadian mystery. It's proof that even the richest homes, with their chandeliers and silk curtains, can hide the darkest secrets. Ada and Clifford Redpath were laid to rest in 1901, but their killer or killers may have been laid to rest with them. Over 120 years later, all we have are shadows, contradictions, and silence. A mansion that no longer stands. A family that buried the truth. And now I ask you, what do you believe really happened that night? Was Clifford a murderer or a victim? Did the Redpaths cover it up to protect their own? Or was the truth too dangerous to expose? If questions like these keep you awake, if you crave the story's history tried to bury, then you belong here. Subscribe now, because the next story I tell may be darker, stranger, and even more haunting. And if you miss it, you'll never know what was buried with the bodies.